Hello, you marvelous denizens of the internet. This is Brian, and I'm here to give some advice. We're taking these stories from r/Am I the Jerk? This first story is Am I the Jerk for Tricking a Foodie Friend? From You Throw Away Trick Jert. A guy in my friends group is a foodie. Not in a fun way like I might be, where you look up the best restaurants for a certain kind of food, try new recipes, or use a fancy ingredient. He likes to act like he knows it all, to the point of insisting the gone-off provolone he put on a cheese board was fine, because provolone is stinky. He made fun of one friend because she said how she treated herself to McDonald's after a long day because McDonald's is unrefined. We had a get-together a few weeks ago, and I made box mix cupcakes. Baking isn't my strong suit. He went on and on about how the box mix wasn't good and was for kids. So annoying. I came up with a prank. We hung out today, and I made box mix brownies. Except, I told him they were made from scratch with dark chocolate truffle oil. I don't even know if that's a real thing. And carob chips, but they were Nestle. He ate nearly 7 and said how good they were. I muttered to McDonald's friend that they were box mix, and then she started laughing, so we told him. He got mad, really mad. He told me I was a jerk and avoided me the rest of the afternoon. I think I'm okay, but one of my friends mentioned that foodie was his personality, and he takes it seriously. I know I tricked him, but I think it was a harmless prank. Am I the jerk? Here's what I think. I think that you're not being a jerk. I think that your friend is being the jerk and is being too pretentious. And that maybe this situation will hopefully make them realize that they're actually being kind of a jerk here. And making fun of someone just because they like McDonald's or they aren't baking with non-box mixes or any of those kinds of things, I think is just plain rude. And you shouldn't turn your nose up at perfectly good brownies just because they were from a box mix. You know, we all have our talents and abilities, and you can't always expect people to be able to make extravagant, from scratch dishes. I personally am a pretty good baker, and I actually do a lot with box mixes. I've made a few recipes from scratch, baked goods from scratch, but most of them I do are from box mixes. I do a lot of cooking from scratch, but I think that baking from box mixes usually is just fine. I think the attitude shows, when they were fooled that they thought that they would be able to tell, a refined kind of taste, but it just goes to show that they're full of themselves. I think they're being a jerk 3 out of 5, and I think you are just fine. I don't think you're being a jerk at all. Maybe 1 out of 5. It would have been slightly different if, for instance, you had decided that to put something like hot sauce or something they were allergic to in the brownies, but this was a harmless prank, so no, you're not a jerk. Our next letter is from Aggressive Piglet, and it's Am I the Jerk for Putting a Fence Up when my neighbors went away for the weekend? Am I the jerk for putting up a fence when my neighbors are away for the weekend? I used to put up fences for a living. My wife and I, both women, recently bought my aunt and uncle's old home. The house has a large back garden with narrow paths along the sides of the house, and this leads to a front garden that's about 1/3 of the size of the back, and is half grass and half paving stones. They have neighbors either side with the same setup. The house number is 85. There is no fence between 85 and 83. 83 has 3 kids under 10 years old. My back garden has a lot of space to run around, and there's no fence, and my cousins are similar ages to 83's kids. My aunt and uncle often let 83's kids come over and play with my cousins, and 83's kids have continued to use the garden after my aunt and uncle left. I have nothing against kids, nor does my wife, but we have plans for the back garden. These include putting up a shed, maybe a few flowers, and we're starting the adoption process soon, so we want our kid to have space to play outside. I went out and measured the property lines a couple weeks ago, and the husband of 83 came out and asked what I was doing. I explained about the fence, said I would pay for it and put it up myself, and told him about my former job exactly doing this, and asked when would be the best time for me to do it. He said not to do it at all. I asked why, and he said they have a baby and I can't be bashing about with hammers and the like. I said I would try to keep it down. I would like to do this. He then asked why I needed to do it because things were fine as is. I said it's nothing personal, but I'm putting up a shed, and I just don't want his kids coming onto my property and getting hurt. He then said I couldn't put up the shed for the same reason as the fence, and I could see we weren't getting anywhere, and went back inside. Then Thursday night, I'm coming home from work and I see the dad is loading bags into their car. Saturday morning, and the car is still gone, and has not been seen since Thursday. I figured they've gone away for the weekend, and as the issue with me putting up the fence was the noise for the baby, now would be the time to do it. I bought the fence materials that day. I used wooden posts/panels and gravel to hold it in place. The whole thing was done by Sunday at lunch. The fence posts are 1.8 meters, and half of that is underground. These things aren't moving anywhere until the end of time. It's on my property and less than a meter tall, so I didn't need permission from the council or 83. They got back Monday night, and this morning I've woken up to knocking. The husband wants me to get rid of the fence. Says it's an eyesore and he's worried his kids will get injured on it. I tell him it's on my property and it's staying. He says he should have been consulted because it's surrounding his property and his wife hates it and thinks it's really ugly. Legally, I'm in the clear. Morally, am I the jerk? Well, I think that you're not the jerk in this case, and I think that you're entitled to set up this fence and actually do what you want with your property. I think that it's unreasonable for him to tell you what you can do with your property. And I think in that respect, he's actually being the jerk here, and that you're perfectly fine. The thing is that you could be held liable for any injuries that his kids do sustain on your property, and in this modern day and age when people are sue happy, it's not unreasonable to be a little suspicious of your neighbors and assume that they're going to sue you. Also, it's a little bit disconcerting. I don't know if the author didn't mention anything about this, but if they never came and approached you about whether it was alright for their kids to continue to play on your property, that's actually a little bit disconcerting as well. While it was alright for them to play, when your aunt and uncle own the property, it isn't necessarily guaranteed that it's going to be okay now that you own the property. This person should have actually approached you and asked you if it was okay for their kids to play in your property. And the excuse that it would wake the kid, the baby, that seems to be clearly an excuse. They weren't going to be alright with this no matter what. And that's really what it boils down to. They didn't want you to have the fence because they want their kids to be able to run and play in your yard, not because you were going to disturb them when you built the fence. And with all that in mind, I don't think you're being the jerk here. I really think that you're in the clear. And while it is unfortunate for the kids that they're not going to necessarily be able to, run around in the yard, there's other places that they can run and play. There's, parks, and there's, they have friends with other yards and all those kinds of things. And if this bothers them enough, then they should look into alternative ways for their kids to entertain themselves outside. Our next letter is titled, "Am I the jerk for letting a guy quit while I was firing him so I wouldn't have to pay his severance?" And this is from Luca Money. I'm a small business owner and I had to let one of my employees go today. I called him in and began to explain that he was being let go and why, and he stops me and goes on a bit of a tirade. Quote, "I'm the one who makes this place run. I'm the last guy who should be getting fired." And I was sitting, letting him get it out of his system. Then he says, "And what's more, you can't fire me. You can't fire someone who doesn't work here. I quit." So I seized the moment and said, "You're quitting?" And this is the PG version, but basically he said, "You're right, I am." And I said, "So you're resigning your post? You are choosing not to work here anymore? You are leaving your job?" He said yes. He said a few other things, and he left. I processed his removal as though he'd quit. I no longer had to pay him severance of any kind. Now I feel a bit badly, because I know getting fired is tough, and sometimes you react off the cuff. I've been there. But he did go on a loud, insulting, profanity-laced tirade, making statements against me and his co-workers and our clients, and most importantly, he did really quit. Am I the jerk for letting him quit instead of giving him the benefits he would have been entitled to if he were fired? You are a little bit of a jerk in this case, but he also kind of made his bed here. I would say you probably get 3 out of 5 for your jerkiness. But on the other hand, he did kind of have it coming as well, and I would definitely give him at least 4 out of 5 for being a jerk in this case. And I know you gave a very abbreviated version of this, but I mean, in a lot of ways he did make his bed, and he is now laying in it, and hopefully he is able to find a new job, and hopefully cooler heads will eventually prevail, and he'll be able to think about what he's done and how it was inappropriate for him to react that way. But again, I do understand his reaction, and I think you're probably right here that he did say these things off the cuff because he was upset, and maybe he felt slighted and felt like he shouldn't be the person who's getting let go right now, and that he does do a lot. You're the person who owns this company, and you certainly have to make hard decisions, and in this case it seems like you had a really hard decision to make, and it seems like this person was doing a lot, but you didn't necessarily feel that they were as pivotal as they felt, and in that respect they may have had a self-inflated sense of worth, and so they may have just felt really insulted that you fired them, and again, that's understandable. So I do think in this case, again, it was a little bit opportunistic to actually process him as getting as quitting instead of getting fired. I don't know the laws in your state. He may still be getting unemployment insurance or any number of things. So, you know, that's really all I can say on the matter. So, yeah, I think you were a little bit of a jerk, but I think you were well within your rights here, and I think that him leaving in the way he did was, inappropriate, and certainly he earned, in some respects, being treated as though he quit because he, literally said to you that he quit and he doesn't want to be fired. So that's my take on it. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions that you want answered, and I will judge you summarily. Take care and have a great day.